I had $2,500 to my name, and that included maxing out my one credit card. Still, I packed up my bags, got on a plane, and moved to an entirely new state, an entirely new city that I'd never even visited. Does that sound crazy? Well, I learned a lot of lessons along the way. I learned a lot of ways to become more resourceful and a lot of ways to figure things out that I didn't even know existed. But more importantly, I figured out what I'm made of. And today on Sincerely Speaking, I want to share with you something that I learned about the four most relevant, most valuable, most important personal resources that we have and that we all have available to us in one way or another. So stick around as I discuss the 4 T's and how these resources can absolutely help you elevate your life to the next level. Let's go. So there are 4 T's that I work with my clients through and that I help them see as their most valuable personal resources. And these 4 T's are available to all of us to one extent or the other. And these 4 T's are also 4 things that we can work on building, expanding, and growing as we continue to elevate our lives to the next level and as we continue to look for ways in which we can bring our special uniqueness, our calling, and our most pressing passion to life, right? So I believe, as you all know, if you've listened to me at all, that we all have a special calling, that we all have a message that is unique to us, and that only we get to deliver in the way that we do, that nobody else can present it in the same way that we can. And that when we elevate our lives to the level of living to that calling, of taking the leap of faith and risking some things in order to get to that space, then we start to uncover and discover a lot of the things that have been hidden from our view in plain sight a lot of the times. And I believe that a big starting point to all of these things is recognizing the 4 most valuable resources that are at our disposal, our 4 T's, and figuring out how to maximize and leverage them, right? So I'm going to first mention the 4 T's, and then we're going to do a little deeper dive into most of them. There's one of them that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on today, and you understand why when I mention it, but the other 3 we're going to do a lot deeper dive on today. Ready? So the 4 T's are time, talent, treasures, and team. Time, talent, treasures, and team. So the one we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on today is time. Time is often discussed as the most valuable, non-renewable resource that we possess, right? And I agree with that. And I really agree with that statement, because every other resource that we're going to talk about, we can either renew, we can rediscover it, or we can replace it in some way, right? But time doesn't really work that way. Once time is gone, it's gone. And there's no way to get it back. There's no way to replace it. There's no way to substitute it. And there's no way to really have more of it except for the 24 hours that we have. There are ways to leverage and maximize it that will make it feel like we have more than the 24 hours in the day that everybody has. But that's a conversation for a different time. And that's the one that I'm not going to go deeply in, because this whole idea of time, how time works, how we can leverage time, how we can manage ourselves in time, and the fact that time management is an illusion and a myth, that all is going to take much, much longer than the time we have to spend together today. But just know that time is one of those resources that once you learn how to tap into it, how to leverage it, how to manage it, everything else that you are trying to accomplish will feel a lot more manageable and a lot more attainable, because you know you have the time to do the thing that you're setting out to do. So be on the lookout. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to do an episode just on how to work around time. How do we manage ourselves in time? How do we expand and stretch time so that it feels like we have more of it than we actually do? Or not, that's not an accurate statement. So that we can work within the time that we have without feeling constrained by time. That's a more accurate statement, right? But we will talk more about time at a later time. Today, I want to focus on the other three. So that is talent, treasures, and team. So let's start with talent. We all have talents, plural, not just one, plural, talents. We all have more than one. The problem is that we grow up in a system that teaches us that there are only certain abilities or certain types of knowledge that are valuable and that we can take to the marketplace and trade in order to get the other resource that we're going to talk about in a minute, right? Money, in order to get paid for what we do. But the reality of it is that we all have several talents, more than one, and that once we recognize and bring those talents into whatever it is that we're doing in the marketplace, with our families, with our friends, with our communities, wherever we are, once we bring those talents in, that's when we get to see momentum build, and we get to see expansion, and we get to see all of these things come together in a way that we have never seen before. Now, what do I mean by that? Why do I say that tapping into these talents creates this buildup of momentum? Think about the fact that all of us have several levels of talent. We have skills, right? So we have skills that are learned, and these are typically things that we go to school for, or that we get training around, or that we practice in some way, right? So somehow we become apprentices of this skill or this ability to do this particular thing, right? Then we also have what I call gifts, right? And gifts are more internal, more emotionally connected abilities that we bring into our lives so that we can process and so that we can connect with the rest of the world in a different way, in a different fashion, right? So your skills are task associated, right? So you learn the skill of accounting, or you learn the skill of teaching, or you learn the skill of performing medicine, or you learn the skill of constructing a building, right? Putting together a building, or you learn the skill of designing a room or designing a website. Those are skills, right? And that's usually what we associate with getting a job, or building a business, or bringing it to the marketplace to get paid, right? But on top of those skills, we also have gifts or gifting, right? And those gifts are more along the lines of, maybe you have the ability to empathize with other people faster. Maybe you are a great listener. Maybe you're a great communicator. Maybe you have the ability to persuade other people. Maybe you have developed this area of charisma. Maybe you have an ability to sense the room, right? To like feel the room and know what's going on in that context that you're in. And those are giftedness. That's a gift, right? It's not necessarily something that you go to get yourself trained on, like a skill, but it is something that allows you to elevate any skill, and that allows you to do things in a way that is different from other people, right? And in that space of gifts, you can grow and hone your gift once you're aware of it. The problem is that most people don't see any value in their gifts unless they're in a space where that element is not just seen but celebrated, right? So if you happen to be, most churches celebrate giftedness. There's a lot of families and a lot of cultures that celebrate giftedness, but not all of them do. And unfortunately, in the United States, we're not big on looking at the gifts, right? But when you can recognize that you have a gift, like you're a great listener, you're a great connector, you are great at networking with other people, you are great at making people feel comfortable, you're great at sensing when somebody's sad or when somebody's upset. All these things, all these gifts are something that you can work on and perfect, and they can actually help you elevate the skills, right? Because, for example, just to give you a quick example that is near and dear to my heart, right? You can learn the skill of teaching. And there's a lot of people that go to school and learn how to teach, or they go take a certification or seminar or whatever, and they're taught how to teach. But if you have the gift of empathy, if you have the gift of connecting with people at a deeper level, then whatever it is that you're teaching, you're going to be able to elevate, because you're going to find a way to deeply connect with the people that you're trying to teach, right? So that level of empathy in the giftedness is going to help you elevate the skill that you learned, right? So you have the skills that you learn, You have the gift that you might have been ignoring for a while that is inside of you. A lot of us are aware of being born with some of these gifts. Others we gain through experiences that we go through or through things that we have to overcome in life, right? But you have those two. And then the final element is your personality, and that falls in your talents as well. So your personality is something that is unique to you. Nobody else on the planet has the exact same personality that you have. And that, I think, is one of the biggest misconceptions we have in the world, is that we think of personalities as personality types. And while most of us can somewhat fit into a personality category, none of us are 100% aligned with the definition of that personality category all the time. And all of us bring a certain unique set of experiences, of just knowledge, of education, of different things that play into that personality that go beyond the personality type, right? So your personality is the collection of all of these things that you've experienced, of all the things that you've learned, of all the things that you've tried, of all the failures, of all the successes, of all the challenges, of all the risks, of everything that you have experienced and been through in your life that have made you the person that you are today, right? So your personality is unique to you, and it is a compilation of a lot of things. But when you understand your personality today, and you understand that personality is malleable, that personality evolves and changes, and when you understand that you have the power to take that personality, use what serves you, and modify what doesn't, then that elevates you to a completely different level in using your giftedness and your skills, right? So when you combine these three things, that's your talent, or those are your talents, right? So the skills, the giftedness, and the personality that you have today. How do all those things come together so that you can be of service to others, so that you can create a space that adds value to the world, so that you can bring something to the marketplace that it's worth other people investing in, right? And I invite you to think about it this way. How many people out there in the world teach something similar to, say, just to use a name that is very common, Tony Robbins, right? How many other people out there do something similar to Tony Robbins, right? But why is Tony Robbins still the one that packs the rooms the most? Why is he still the one that so many people follow? Why is he still the first personal development person that most people encounter and follow out there? It's because of his combination of skills, of giftedness, and of personality. When you put it all together, he is the only one that can deliver that content in that way. And it's not just because of all his years of experience. That's part of it, right? That falls into what we're talking about. But it's because of who he is. Now, some people are going to listen to Tony Robbins once and then never want to hear from him again. They will not resonate with him, but they will find someone else that teaches something similar or that works around the same things or similar things, and they will resonate with that other person, right? So whatever you do, whether there's one other person or 100,000 million other people on the planet, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but whether there's one or thousands of other people on the planet doing the same thing that you do, you have a unique combination of talents, right? You have a unique combination of those skills, that giftedness, and that personality that is going to make you stand out to the right people, and that is going to draw in the right people that are only meant to work with you. Now, I'm going to skip treasures and go to teams. And the reason I want to do this is because treasures is the most commonly spoken about one. And I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about treasures, but I do want to touch on it in a minute, right? But the second one, or the second one that we're going to talk about, is teams. And the thing about teams is that is not normally seen as a personal resource, because teams by definition implies other people being brought in, right? But the reason I include it in personal resources is because we get to step out of this idea that we get to work with the team we're given, or we work with the people that are by default around us. And we get to step into the space of possibility that we might actually be able to design our teams, that we might actually get to pick the people that we associate with, that we work with, and that contribute to our work and the things that we get to do in this world, right? So it all starts with understanding the types of teams that we can be affiliated or associated with, right? So obviously, the most important team that you have out there is your family, however you define your family, right? So your spouse, your children, maybe your parents, maybe your siblings, maybe your nieces and nephews, maybe cousins, maybe even close friends. Anybody that is so close to you and so intimately in your circle that they are an integral part of who you are, how you operate, what you do, why you do what you do, whether these people are aware of it or not. But they are the people that you keep in mind the most when you're making decisions that might affect the rest of your life. These are the people that drive you and that inspire you to move faster and closer to those dreams that you have. These are the people that support you in your toughest times. And these are the people that you can always rely on, right? So family is part of your teams. And that aspect of family, very often people see it as, well, you get the family that you get, right? And you deal with the family that you have, and that is it. But there's so much that we can bring into that space of family. There's so much that we can alter, affect, and change. We all know of families that don't interact with each other, that don't get along, that never, ever, ever speak to each other or are in the same space together. And we all probably have at least a couple of people in our family that we would much rather not be around, at least not that often, right? And we hate to admit it, and we often don't, but we all have those people. But we also all probably have one or two people that are not bloodline related, right? That they're not your blood, but that they are, in fact, your family, right? So the first thing I would love for us to think about when we're thinking about the space of teams is that even within your family, you have a lot of say in how that family dynamic operates, right? If you have been somehow disconnected from your family, right? If you are experiencing any kind of disjointedness, right? Or if you happen to be estranged from anybody in your family, it is within your power to start taking steps towards correcting that if that's something that you think needs to be corrected, right? Now, you have complete permission from me, at least, to understand and to choose to keep the space between you and those family members. Because let's face it, not everybody in our blood is someone that is going to contribute positively to our world and to our lives, right? So you have all permission to choose, no, you know what, I don't want to do anything. But if this is something that is negatively affecting you, if this is something that you feel somehow or for some reason that should be fixed, then you have everything in your power to go ahead and do it. And we can talk more about that. You can go to marciamaro.com, set up an appointment, and we can talk about it face to face if you'd like. But there are things that you can do to correct that, right? But beyond that, there is this notion that family can be a gift if you choose to just look at what each and every one of the people in your family get to bring into your world and what you get to contribute into theirs, right? Thus, again, like I said before, you can always choose to bring new people into your family nucleus, even if they're not blood related, simply because of the proximity that you build with them and the way in which you interact with them. So this notion that family is by default what it is and there's nothing you can do about it, let's step away from that and let's start thinking of family as something that we get to contribute into, that we get to work through certain situations in order to make it the best that it can be, that it can also be a huge asset when we operate from a space of a family is, and it's going to be what I make it and what I contribute to it and how I choose to perceive it. All right. So aside from family, we also have the work team, right? The work team. And we're going to come back to the work team in a second. But the third one is the friends and the acquaintances teams, right? And there, it has been said that we are the sum total or the average of the 5 people closest to us in every sense, in attitude, in money, in career, in everything that we do. We are the average of the 5 people closest to us. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that that is an accurate statement, but the truth of the matter is that proximity matters. Proximity is key. So the people that you that you allow close to you are going to affect you in one way or another, and you are going to affect them in one way or another. So it's important to not let that close circle of friends and acquaintances that have your ear, that come close to your space, that spend a lot of time around you. It's important to curate that group of people so that the average that are bringing into your life, so that the information and the influence that they're bringing in is conducive to helping you get closer to your goals, to your dreams, and to the things that you want to do in the world, right? So make certain that you're curating those people closest to you. And it's okay to let people know that, look, I no longer see how we are connected, or I no longer see how we can support and help each other. And it is okay to be deliberate with bringing in the kind of people that we want in our space, right? And to make room for them. That is perfectly acceptable and perfectly okay. So again, permission to design the circle that you have around you. Now let's talk about work. We don't always get to pick the people that we work with, especially if we are employees, right? If we are entrepreneurs or business owners, then we have more say. And most of the time, the big mistake that I see entrepreneurs and business owners make is we tend to hire people that are like us. And that is not always the best practice, because people who are like us also have the same or very similar limitations to what we have. And so we're going to end up struggling in the same things over and over again, because we're surrounding ourselves with people who cannot complement the things that we're not great at, right? So when it comes to entrepreneurs and business owners, the idea and the suggestion in building these teams is to make sure that you're bringing in people who are complementary to you, people who think differently from you, and people who have different sets of skills from you. Because that way, whatever you are not the strongest at, you will have somebody else in your circle that can support and that complement whatever it is that you're weak at, right? But if you are an employee, and you're in a space where you don't get to build your team, then the challenge is twofold. First is to build empathy so that you can understand where they're coming from, so that you can step aside from judgment, step away from criticism, and step into a space of support and connection, right? So you get to explore empathy with this person, especially those people that seem contrarian or that are hard for you to connect with, right? And you are not always going to grow that relationship to a space where you're buddy friends and you want to go hang out on the weekend, but you can always take it to a space where it's suitable for advancing whatever your tasks are at work, whatever your goals are at work, right? So it's a matter of trying to understand where they're coming from, trying to communicate in a way that it's more conducive to being seen, heard, and understood on both directions, and to building a space where you understand one another. And that requires asking the right questions, that requires listening with curiosity, that requires moving away from judgment and into a space of possibility. And that requires understanding that every person has something valuable to bring, and looking for, like mining for that valuable information that that person has to bring, regardless of whether personality-wise or just on a human level you connect, right? Just in the workspace, look for that connection, look for that space of possibility, right? Now, if you are the one building the team at work, then again, make sure that you're looking for ways in which the team can complement each other. And that's the other thing, regardless of how this work team is put together, there is always something that this person is going to be good at. Remember, we were talking about talents. Everybody has skills and talents, everybody. So look to see how the skills and talents that this person gets to bring into the table can be helpful and can be of assistance to the rest of the team, and be focused on the possibility of what this person gets to bring, right? Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about in the teas today, and that we're going to mention for quite a bit, is treasures, right? So when we talk about treasures, most people automatically think about money. And yes, we are talking about money. But treasures go beyond money. Treasure is any resource that you can exchange for something else that you might need, right? And we all have resources, all of us. You might not have the largest bank account. You might not have all the dollar signs that you want, but we all have something that can be considered a treasure, a valuable resource that we can exchange for something else. If you don't believe me, then think about the last time that you needed, for example, somebody to help you move, right? Or I'll just tell you my story, right? When I was still single, living in Orlando, I moved several times because I lived in apartments. And anyway, so I moved several times. And every time I needed to move, I had more stuff because I had been in Orlando longer, right? So the last time I moved in Orlando, I had all this crap and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. And even just one or two people were not going to do it. So what did I do? I went to my friends and I said, okay, there's going to be free pizza and Coke or soda for anybody who helps me. And we're going to hang out afterwards. And I will invite you into the pool of the complex and we will just have a grand old time afterwards. So I traded a party-like environment for help with moving. And I had such a great turnout that we moved everything in under an hour. And then we had all this time to hang out. And all I had to do was provide pizza, soda, and entrance to the pool. Now, yeah, there was money involved in buying the pizza, but if I had hired movers, how much more would that have cost me, right? So you can probably think of a moment in your life, probably even in recent times, when you needed help with something or somebody else needed help with something, and you traded your time to help them, right? For whatever, for a food, for hanging out, for another thing that you needed, right? We've all seen situations in which somebody needs, I don't know, maybe a business needs chairs, just to give an example. And there's a party planner in town that can supply the chairs, but then the business offers marketing. And they're like, okay, you lend me the chairs for this event and I will give you free marketing for whatever your next campaign is, right? Or something along those lines. There's always something that can be traded or exchanged as a resource. So anytime you can think of something valuable you can offer in exchange for something else, that's a resource, that's a treasure that you have. So the invitation here is first to think about, to shift the way we think about our treasures as just being money. Yes, money is a big part of it, but it's not the only thing, right? We have other things of value that we can exchange for whatever we need if we get really resourceful and creative in the way that we are thinking about our treasures. But not only that, and I'll give you another, for instance, that I just thought about, or another example that I just thought about right now. But not only that, even if we think about treasures as just money, money is everywhere. Money is available everywhere. It's just a matter of thinking, what can I bring of value in exchange for the money that I need right now? So what can I do for somebody else that they would be willing to give me money in exchange for it? And even if they're not willing to give me money, maybe they can give me something I can trade for money, right? But as long as I have something of value to bring, I have a way and a means of getting the treasures that I need. And I think that that's a big shift that we get to do. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's taken me a long time to make that complete shift. And I still struggle with it sometimes, right? But when we get out of this thought of, oh, I don't have enough dollar signs, enough money, and we can start thinking about, okay, I have a lot of value and I have many different types of treasures to bring into the marketplace. Then we get out of this mindset of scarcity and of lack, and we start thinking about all the possibilities and all the abundance that it's around us. And that elevates us to a different place where we can actually see and tap into all the different levels of treasures that are available to us, right? And just to give you that last example that I thought about, when I was still living in Orlando and I was a teacher, I ran into this friend of mine who happened to have a hair salon, right? Now, my hair right now is gray, but at the time it was graying, but I would dye it, right? So I dyed my hair and I have very, very curly hair, believe it or not. So I blew it out every week. So I went to her hair salon once to try and get my hair done. But as a teacher, I didn't make a whole lot of money. And honestly, I wasn't very good with managing my money anyway. So I was always broke. And I went into her salon and I was like, look, I really need my hair done, but how much is this gonna cost? And she saw an opportunity as well. And she said, well, you know what? My kid needs tutoring. He's not doing very well in school. So I'll make a deal with you. If you come in every week to tutor my kid, I will make sure that your hair looks the way you want it to look. And so we made a trade, and I would go in actually twice a week to tutor her kid. And one day she would take care of my color, and the other day she would take care of the blowout. And it was beautiful for a long period of time. I don't remember how long. We traded, it was several months. We traded tutoring for hair, and it was a beautiful thing. And then at the end of our exchange, then she figured out another way to help her kid, and I found another hairstylist. But when I needed it, it was available, right? And my hair always looked amazing. So that's just a quick example, right? So in that sense, my treasure was my knowledge and my skill, and her treasure was her knowledge and her skill. Make sense? So very often these resources intertwine and they help one another. So just to recap really quickly, we have 4 extremely valuable resources at our disposable, personal resources that we can tap into at any time if we learn to recognize them and maximize them. They are time, talent, treasures, and teams. We will talk about time in a later podcast episode because we're going to dive deeply into what time really is, where it comes from, how we can leverage and maximize it, how we can stretch it, and how we can accomplish more in a day than most people do in a week. But we will talk more about that later. The second one is talent, and we talked about how we have 3 different levels of talent, right? We have skill, we have giftedness, and we have our personality. And we can tap into each one of those in different ways and in different levels. They often come together to create an amazing, amazing space where your talent makes room for you, your giftedness makes room for you, and opens up a world of possibilities. Then we talk about teams, how to build them, how to support them, and how to grow them, how to leverage them as well. And we have teams in the family, we have teams at work, we have teams just in the community, right? So friends and acquaintances and things like that. And then finally, we talked about treasures, and we talk about how treasures is a lot more than just money. And we can turn anything of value into a treasure if we are just a little bit more creative and a little bit more resourceful. Now, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that you can go out there and maximize and leverage all your talents. And I also have an invitation for you. I am putting together this amazing challenge starting May 15th, and it is called the Elevate Your Life Challenge, in which we will tap into how to rediscover your calling and your purpose. We will help you build unshakable confidence so you can go out there and take the necessary actions to build your life to the next level. And we will also talk about the path that you get to follow in order to continue and to leverage this idea of living in your purpose, living out your calling, and living your best life. So if you're interested in elevating your life, your relationships, and your career or business to the next level, go to timeisnow.live and register for the challenge that begins on May 15th. If you're listening to this after May 15th, then just join the wait list and wait for the next challenge. But until next time, this is Marcia Mar, and this has been Sincerely Speaking. I'll see you next week.